Hello and welcome to World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live from Beijing on CGTN. Coming up on today's program. In Syria, peace talks in Astana, Russia, President Putin calls for safe zones, a proposal echoed by Turkey. And an MMA fighter knocks out a Tai Chi master. What does this mean for the integrity of traditional Chinese martial arts? We start with the ongoing Syria peace talks. A fourth round of talks aimed at resolving the Syrian conflict is being held in Astana, capital of Kazakhstan. Representatives from the Syrian government, the U.S., Russia, Turkey, as well as the United Nations are present at the meeting. Unlike in previous meetings, Russia is pushing for major progress by raising the idea of a safe zone, and the proposal is echoed by other players.
Another round of effort trying to end the 6-year-long violence in Syria. And this time, Russia has come with a proposal of a safe zone.
The establishment of the safe zone should lead to further pacification of the situation and to the strengthening of a ceasefire to curb bloody conflicts. It is the most important condition for allowing the parties to start political dialogue, which should finally restore the territorial integrity of Syria and put the country under unified leadership.
According to Russia's plan, the safe zone would be established in rebel-held territory in the northwestern province of Idlib, in parts of Homs province in the center, in the south, and in the opposition enclave of eastern Ghouta near Damascus. It would end violence and allow the return of refugees and the delivery of aid. They would be surrounded by checkpoints manned by rebels and government troops. Foreign troops could also be deployed in observer roles. And with Russia-Turkey ties returning to normal, the proposal was pleasantly agreed by Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan.
We cannot ignore the suffering of the innocent, so we are making efforts to find a solution to the problem in Syria. My friend Mr. Putin also wants to find an end to the situation. I believe my friend Mr. Putin will play a major role in establishing a ceasefire.
Putin said he had discussed the plan and other ways to boost the ceasefire in Syria with U.S. President Donald Trump in a phone call on Tuesday. Putin said the U.S. government supports these ideas, and a delegation representing the Syrian armed opposition returned to the peace talk on Thursday, a day after it said it had suspended its participation. Yet whether it is willing to accept Russia's proposal remains to be seen.
So what are the prospects of the Syrian peace talks? Our panel weighs in. Joining us in Beijing, Ms. He Wenping, professor at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome. In Moscow, Russia, we are joined by Pavel Felgenhauer, a Russian defense analyst. Washington, D.C., we invited Theodore Katuf, who is a former ambassador to Syria from the United States. Welcome to the three of you. I want to start with you, Mr. Felgenhauer. There is already a fatigue, I think, going on in the world about whether there's any solution to the Syrian issue. Is this a new inspiration, or this is going to be, Mr. Felgenhauer, one of those things?
Well, this initiative is a strong attempt by Moscow to push forward some kind of process that could end the Syrian civil war. It's understood in Moscow that there is no, indeed, pure military solution to the Syrian problem. That means that Russia right now uses different means to coerce and split the Syrian opposition, to find and fractions of the Syrian opposition that will be ready to cooperate and help them build a base, these power base. These agreements, these safe zones, are sort of fiefdoms that will be granted to the loyal Syrian opposition, in understanding that they will go and oppose militarily the bad Syrian opposition, the designated terrorists.
Ambassador Fatuf, it seems that Mr. Felgenhauer from Russia, in his tone, is not that enthusiastic about the plan himself.
Well, listen, we've already had previous talks in Astana and other attempts to get a ceasefire. And what we have seen generally is either Russia is unable or unwilling to prevent President Assad and his coalition of forces from breaking these ceasefires. I'm particularly referring, for instance, to attacks that Bashar al-Assad's forces launched after the last talks in Astana near Damascus on the water sources for Damascus. There was no indication that the forces he attacked belonged to proscribed groups like the so-called Islamic State, Daesh, or to what used to be called the Nusra Front. And also Russia failed to stop chemical weapons from being used as far as the U.S. is concerned.
It's very
interesting.
So
there's a credibility problem.
It's very interesting that there's not only a credibility thing, but also a lot of finger pointing going on just in the answers by the two of you gentlemen. May I remind you of the latest development? The White House said President Trump of the United States and the Russian President Vladimir Putin chatted on Tuesday, as you mentioned, discussing the biggest challenges in 2017, including the Syrian civil war. The Kremlin said the possibility of a first meeting between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin was floated during even that phone conversation. So is Syria this time trying to resolve it in any way, a foot in the door for Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin to start certain kinds of discussions to resolve that problem? Ambassador Fatouf.
Look, all right-thinking people want an end to this horrible conflict. But everybody has different ideas about what the end state should look like. As your viewers know, the U.S. has long said that at some point Bashar al-Assad has to go. Russia and Iran seem to take a different view, although Russia's been a bit ambiguous about the end state where Bashar is concerned. And yes, it would be a great thing if Putin and Trump can get together and agree to some principles, particularly those that protect civilian populations in Syria.
All right.
But the devil is always in the details.
Okay, how important are those details, Mr. Felgenhauer? Will the meeting, the telephone call, the enough fatigue from around the world about so-called the end game in Syria be enough for seeking some solutions?
Well, as it was just said, the problem is in implementation. Russia has quite some cloth in Syria with the Syrian government and with the pro-Iranian forces, but it does not directly control them. And previous attempts to impose a ceasefire didn't end very well. There was lots of violations happening all the time, and everyone blaming everyone. Now, apparently, the idea is to institutionalize these rebel-controlled areas and grant them to good rebels. It's something like the Russian forces did in Chechnya when they ended the Chechen war, or what the Americans did in Iraq with the arousing, with moving kind of to have Sunni tribesmen, Sunni fighters to fight the bad guys, the terrorists.
All right.
Will that work or not? There's always problems with such kind of moves.
Okay.
No one really knows for now for
here
sure.
in Beijing, what is this about? I mean, what is going on in Syria? Is it really about the settlement plan? Or is it about the big powers, for example, Russia, the United States, and some of the regional ones trying to struggle to have a bigger proportion of control of the situation over there and use it as a proxy ground?
Well, there are everything in this Syria war. Yeah, everything you can find.
Yes, I know it's everything, but what exactly is the main conflict over here?
Right. I think now different time there are different keywords. So before we heard about like proxy war, and then we heard about like Assad must go or not go, and also not long ago this chemical weapon issue. But now this time again for this Astana talk, now we're focused on this. Another keyword is coming out, that is safer zone. So from those keywords you can see those different players, they are playing different game. So before that game is just targeting on Assad, go or not go. And then now it seems not a matter, that issue. Now people talking about how to bring the US and Russia together, trying to mend their relations.
Do you see that as a healthy development, or do you see that as a setback in the overall nature of the discussion?
I think it's a healthy development,
There we go.
because at least now the US sent a very high level that's a negotiator right now to the Astana. Before, they have never sent such a high-level official to be there. So which means now President Trump has making very serious consideration about how to engage with Russia, to make this Syria crisis back on the political, diplomatic track.
Ambassador Katouf, it is no secret that there has been some differences between President Trump and the establishment of the Republican Party, or shall I say, inside the Beltway, about how to deal with Russia and what to do with Russia on Syria issue. Do you think that difference is getting ever smaller as we are talking right now, or getting ever more bigger at this point? What does that mean eventually for a negotiation involving all parties, particularly in which Russia also participates?
Well, the Trump people had made some very conciliatory statements about Syria and Russia's involvement just before this chemical attack occurred. And they were forced to go about 180 degrees in the other direction. So we don't really know all the time where Trump is, frankly, right in this country. He says different things on different days. Very early, it appeared that he did not care much if Bashar al-Assad stayed in power. His focus was on eliminating Daesh and other radical such groups from the region, not just Syria, but Iraq and elsewhere. More recently, with the chemical attack, he at least felt the need to distance himself from Bashar al-Assad and what had happened, and to let his officials criticize Russia for not disarming Syria of all its chemical weapons. My own belief is that Trump likes to deal. He likes to make deals. He wants to make deals. He would love, I think, to make a deal with Putin, but there are domestic political difficulties, as you well know, concerning what happened during the election campaign and what the investigation is going to show, which is the investigation, of course, is ongoing.
The investigation has always drip, drip, drip all the time in order to challenge President Trump. Ambassador Katouf, I still want to ask you, what about this safe zone plan? Since we have a plan raised by Russia, so is that going to be one of those areas the deal can happen? Ambassador Katouf.
Theoretically, yes. I mean, Trump has talked also about safe zones for civilians. And it's something that he has said more than once. So apparently he believes in it. But establishing safe zones are not so easy. You have to have no-fly zones. Those have to be enforced. You have to have troops on the ground ensuring that the wrong people don't go into the camps and terrorize people or force young people to join their militias and the like. And it's not clear that Iran and Bashar al-Assad would really allow this to happen.
All right. Well,
and they have the ability to sabotage it.
Yeah. Earlier, Mr. Falkenhauer, you did talk about the devils in the details. Can devils also work together this time?
Well, you should understand that if the United States and Washington have their own internal issues, Russia and Moscow has its own. Right now, Russia is in the final stages of putting together a very major rearmament program. And so the Russian military right now are fighting the Russian finance ministry and the finance part of the government on how much trillions of rubles should be spent on new arms. So that means the Russian military do not really want that close cooperation with America. They need America as a threat. Though in Syria, of course, it's obvious the Kremlin wants to cooperate to some, at least, extent with the United States. Will the overall strategic interest of the Russian military prevail? Will the Russian military actually sabotage, to some extent, what's happening on the ground in Syria? That cannot be excluded. So it's a very, very complicated situation where many wills are involved, many powers are involved, which are very entangled between each other. So it's not just details of what's on the piece of paper signed in Astana. And actually the rebels didn't sign. But though they were present then when it was signed by Turkey, Russia, and Iran. But there's also the multi-power play, very complicated.
I understand there is a very complicated issue involved here. That's why it takes such a long time. We are continuing talking about it. Ms. He, though, China has been quite a neutral player in this regard. The ambassador to the Syrian issue, Xie Xiaoyan, is going to travel in some of the relevant countries in order to make sure he compares notes and try to bring people together on some kinds of common ground. What exactly are the common grounds are we looking at?
Oh, I think at least the two common grounds has been already laid down. One is the political solution. No military way can solve this issue, Syria crisis. So the past 7 years war has been proved that. So now back to the political talk, back to the diplomatic track. So that's one thing, common issue. Another common issue, I think that also has been put forward by Chinese side. That is, those process of the diplomatic means should be started from easier to the harder issue. From easy thing that is the ceasefire. Now, if you talk about political, like a interim government, that's not possible. That's not a feasibility issue. So starts from ceasefire. So that's why now ceasefire talk has been undertaken in Astana. Talk for at least now is the fourth round. That's a complementary with those Geneva talk dominated by the United Nations. So I think China supported this kind of way from easier to the harder. So from ceasefire first, but we have to look about whenever there's a new idea coming out, then a lot of difficulties also coming out.
Right.
For example, that safer zone sounds like a good idea, can split those rebel forces and also guarantee some humanitarian corridor, but also lots of problems. Who will administrate this safer zone? Is it a no-fly zone will be established before? So who is to be sent to even the ground troop to guarantee that corridor? So a lot of things coming out.
A long list that you have just mentioned, Ms. He. So, Ambassador Katov, Mr. Falkenhauer, from the U.S. side, from the Russian side, from the regional power side, can anyone help to solve what Ms. He just mentioned, at least some number of those issues on that long list? Ambassador Katov.
There seems to me that there is one issue that Russia, Iran, the United States, Bashar al-Assad, and to a lesser extent Turkey, and I should mention China also would agree upon, and that is the dangers of radical Islamist movements in that region of the world.
That's right.
So there is a consensus, I believe, even with Turkey to a large extent, that Daesh has to be eliminated to the greatest extent possible, at least militarily. You can't really eliminate an idea, but you can eliminate a lot of their military capabilities. Also, we don't talk much about what used to be called the Nusra Front, but now it's called Tahrir, or the liberation of Syria, Tahrir al-Sham, particularly strong in Idlib province.
Yeah, so Ambassador
They are not at the
Katov,
top.
what exactly is your point? You're saying these can be the common grounds that the countries can work together, but you're putting it in a very different direction, because we're talking about a safe zone. Before the safe zone, there's ceasefire. On the ceasefire, can anybody do anything? And now you're dragging us to another direction, which is helpful, I guess. But eventually, can anybody do anything?
I guess I'm saying how difficult.
Talking points. Yeah.
I guess what I'm really saying is how difficult it is to enforce a ceasefire, because Bashar al-Assad and his Iranian allies will look at Idlib province, for instance, and say, you have all these groups, even some of the groups that went to the talks cooperating with the radical Islamists in Tahrir al-Sham, because they're among the strongest fighting groups on the ground among the opposition. And many opposition groups are afraid that Bashar al-Assad will defeat them one by one if they don't stand and fight alongside Tahrir al-Sham.
All right.
So what I guess I am saying is it's incredibly problematic.
Okay, Mr.
Even though in principle, all the major powers are against Tahrir al-Sham.
Mr. Falkenhauer, Ambassador Katov is saying, well, probably the ball is in your court or in Iran's court. Mr. Falkenhauer.
Well, I mean, of course, everyone says that they're against Islamic terrorists and no one likes ISIS or Al-Qaeda connected groups. And but when it comes down to real cooperation, there's enormous problems. And there's a lot of suspicion. The Russian military and the American military do not really want to cooperate much at all. They have to be pressurized very seriously by political leadership from both sides
All right.
to actually begin working together in good faith. So that means there should be leadership coming from politicians from the White House, from the Kremlin, if something, a kind of real cooperation could be achieved. Talking about cooperation is not enough. There are very serious systemic difficulties to do anything together. They should be overcome.
We can see in our conversation, we talk about the difficulties a lot and solutions, very few opportunities yet. I guess that's where the problem is. But thank you so much for the three of you for joining us, Ms. He Wenping, Mr. Pavel Felgenhauer, and Ambassador Theodore Kattouf. Really appreciate it. And you are watching World Insight with Tian Wei on CGTN. Still to come on our program. An MMA fighter knocks out a Tai Chi master in just 10 seconds. Is this a wake-up call for Chinese martial arts? What exactly is really behind the fascinating Chinese martial arts? We'll be back after this. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live Monday to Friday on CGTN. Before we move on to our main story, let's take a closer look at one genre of Chinese Kung Fu, Tai Chi. It's a Chinese martial art practiced for both defensive training and its health benefits. It has its history of several hundred years with many famous practitioners. And now you're watching a performance from the Chens. Showing a mixed martial arts fighter from Beijing knocking down a self-proclaimed Tai Chi master within seconds continued to go viral on Chinese social media. While the demonstration may be seen by some as a defeat for traditional martial arts, experts and officials believe that the whole thing was a publicity stunt. So what really is going on right now, and what is really behind the traditional Chinese martial arts that's being demonstrated right now in our studio? Before we go to our discussion, take a look at this background first.
In Chinese movies, Tai Chi is always portrayed as miraculous martial arts with deep philosophical meaning. But Xu Xiaodong, a mixed martial arts fighter, claims that modern Tai Chi is not trustworthy.
Tai Chi is real, but only 1 in 10 is real. The other 90% are frauds.
He challenged the Tai Chi amateur, Lei, knocking him out in seconds. But Lei has his own concern.
Some real skills of Tai Chi cannot be used, otherwise people might die several days later. Why not try the skill during the combat? In that case, I'll be in prison now.
Most analysts think the fight is just a publicity stunt, plotted by Xu to win fame. Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba Group, is a big fan of Tai Chi and Chinese martial arts. In his opinion, the knockout is just a show between two amateurs out of a personal grudge. He believes that Tai Chi can fight, but it was not born for combat, while MMA is. Jet Li, a Kung Fu superstar, offered another explanation for the defeat. Martial arts in modern society is more about performance and sports rather than combat skill.
Because we don't need real Kung Fu anymore. Real Kung Fu is the fastest way to kill a person. In ancient China, practicing martial arts is to earn a living.
There was a time when Chinese Kung Fu gained worldwide fame for legendary figures. Ip Man with his Wing Chun, Wang Fei Hung with his Hung Kun, Bruce Lee with his Jeet Kune Do, who was also called by some the father of MMA. Shaolin Kung Fu and Tai Chi are also extremely influential. Though originally conceived as a martial art, Tai Chi in modern society is mainly practiced for health and longevity. The concept of Tai Chi appears in both Taoist and Confucian Chinese philosophy where it represents the fusion or mother of yin and yang into a single ultimate, represented by the Tai-Jitsu symbol. But it seems that Xu's recent challenge is leading to second thoughts of Tai Chi nationwide. How to defend the dignity of traditional martial arts in this modern civilization that no longer needs combat.
Tai Chi vis-a-vis MMA? Really? Both in Beijing, we have our two panelists. We have over there Anthony Go, Executive Vice President of the International Wushu Federation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And we also have our master sitting here, Mr. Xu Chengzhi, 13th generation Chen style Tai Chi master. Welcome as well.
Thank you.
I want to begin with you, Mr. Xu. What about it, practicing Tai Chi in a TV studio?
I'm a little nervous, I have to say that. It's my first time to perform like this.
Yes, but you have 2,000 students here in China and all over the world.
All over the world, yes. Yeah, I have taught Tai Chi for 16 years in China and Germany. Yeah, I ever taught maybe more than 2,000 years.
But you are an economist yourself.
Yes.
Rather than just a Tai Chi master.
This is a modern time that we can be an economist, we can be a politician, and at the same time we can be a Tai Chi master.
That's terrific. But what do you make, both of you, of that latest story? I mean, there has been going viral on social media, MMA fighter against the Tai Chi master lost. So I have to go to Mr. Xu first about his response. What do you think? Has Tai Chi been defeated?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
In my opinion, yeah, this is a very interesting game, actually. Very interesting phenomenon. But first of all, Li can represent only himself. He cannot represent the Tai Chi school, let alone the traditional Chinese martial arts. So I think that this is a good issue which can let people rethink about the Chinese martial arts.
Yeah.
It has some progressive meanings. Process meanings, but at the same time that I think the traditional Chinese martial arts should rethink how to develop.
Very interesting point over there. I'll let Mr. Xu to catch his breath after that practice with a lot of vitality. Mr. Go, as the Vice President of the Federation for International Wushu, what do you make of the nature of this kind of competition?
I think this is a very interesting incident, and I think the topic got so heated debated. It's probably unexpected by even these two individuals who set up the fight. I don't think the traditional Wushu community should feel threatened by any of this, because I think there's so many practitioners and there's so many good values, and I think all styles of martial art coexist, and especially the Chinese traditional style will exist.
But you know, Mr. Go, what about that? Is that competition going to lead to the conclusion that the Chinese martial art, when it comes to competitiveness and combating power, is inferior, let's just say, to MMA or some of the other, modern fighting styles?
I don't think so. Simply because there's so much varieties in Chinese martial art, so many different styles, and so many areas you can focus. For example, like our federation, which has over 147 country members, and we practice like Sanshou, which is all focused on fighting, just full contact fighting. We also do on Taolo, which is just performance, no routines, performance. And then we also do like sport for all, where people can just do traditional and not competing, not elite fighting, where everyone can benefit from the health, training, and a sense of well-being. So people can pick and choose because there's so much variety. So I think it would not this small incident would not affect the whole big picture and the development of the sport.
But it seems that the Kung Fu master, at least the Tai Chi master self-proclaimed, has been defeated. Are you surprised by that? Do you feel ashamed about that as a Tai Chi master yourself?
No, not at all.
Because he is not from your style?
Every Tai Chi master are also the students of Tai Chi. Although we are the teacher, we are also the students. So none of us can represent the Tai Chi school. We can only on the process of learning and make some progress. So Tai Chi school is not defeated. Li may be defeated, but it is a good thing that for the whole Tai Chi world, because we need to rethink about this issue. This is a very interesting issue, caused a hot debate.
What about that rethinking? So, what is Tai Chi about? And from Tai Chi to the whole genre of Chinese martial art, what is it about? Is it about sports? Or is it about traditional culture? Or is it about philosophy? Or is it about cultivation of minds? What is the meaning of traditional Chinese martial arts still today?
In my opinion, Tai Chi is all of them. Tai Chi is a kind of sports, of course, but Tai Chi is also kind of fighting skills because it's a condensation of Chinese ancestors' way of survival in many, many years ago, and it developed for thousands of years. So Tai Chi definitely is also kind of fighting skills. And thirdly, Tai Chi has a lot of elements from the Chinese traditional culture. So Tai Chi is very profound and extensive.
You can tell it's from the 13th generation of the Chen style of Tai Chi masters. But, you know, what is the meaning of traditional martial arts? Because many believe when they practice martial arts, they believe in the vitality. They also believe in the combating power. They believe in self-defense. They also believe in the confidence once you practice martial art because you are getting ever stronger. But that stronger also comes from somewhat the combating power of it.
I think all styles of martial art that developed, originated, and practiced in China are considered as Kung Fu, Chinese martial art, or traditional. And I think today we say traditional, we're probably referring to the older style that developed in the last 300-400 years, which somewhat connected to the history, like using the ancient weapons.
Right. So what about now? Is it still relevant today?
But it's still very relevant. But also we have developed into the elite competition. Like we are a member of the IOC, International Olympic Committee, and we actually were shortlisted for 2020 Tokyo Olympic, which means we also developed this into a modern sport, taking the elements out, designed, choreographed in such a way that is going to be just
when it comes to sport, there is boxing, and that is a very competitive sport. And that makes people glue their eyes to the competition. And that makes that sport very alive among many of the sports all over the world. So if martial arts is not going to be as powerful when it comes to combative power as people believe it to be, will it still be relevant, even among sports?
I think it's important to build a commercial value, but if you look at it, the other styles, karate, taekwondo, judo, wrestling, of course, boxing is probably the most, carries the most commercial value.
Spicy and the commercial values
yes.
of it.
But I think everyone is working towards that goal. And actually, the routine of Taolu is spectacular to watch. The full contact fighting that we have in Sanshou, it's very combative. Very, it's all out. Except we don't do a lot of the ground fighting, but other than that, it's all out.
Here is the thing. What is it about? Is it about a process-oriented, which is the Taolu? It's a process that people can watch and get entertained and be fascinated by its sporting power. Or is it about result-oriented, which is eventually who is going to win? What is that?
From the point of my view, that Tai Chi is just one school of Chinese martial arts. I said that it embodies the very much about of the Chinese traditional culture. One of the things is that every master should be modest, and there are many things you need to explore and learn from the school. So it is not the results are presented. When you combat with another person, your heart, your mind should be that I want to learn from him. That's the starting point. My starting point is not to defeat him, but I want to learn from this process. This is also emphasized by Confucius many years ago.
So result to you as a Tai Chi master is not important?
It is important because it is an examination way of what I learned of my level.
Yes,
yeah,
only from that perspective.
But this is not the most important. The Wushu spirit actually is to learn from each other. It's to train your body and your spiritual world.
Do you think people understand about that?
I think when you say results, there are different results that different group of people are looking for. If I want to be the best fighter, then I want the result is to knock out my opponent. But if I want to be a good, really a technician in Tai Chi, then my result is able to generate a kind of power, generate a kind of skill. So that's my result. If I'm an older guy and I want just to practice and I get up in the morning, I get a good sleep, I feel good, that's my result. So I think the traditional Kung Fu deliver all this result, and you have to find a good teacher, a style that suits you, that suits your interest, your benefit, so that you want to go and practice it every day.
I'm so glad that our two masters are getting really excited in this discussion. So let's go to the next topic, which is why people are so excited about this. I mean, about this little story about, you know,
I think people are bored.
Fighting. Besides that, is it about what they believe as the meaning of Kung Fu vis-a-vis what they've been reading or what they're seeing through this competition? Or is it about that the Chinese Kung Fu should never be defeated? I want to go with the second point first. Mr. Xu, you and I remember in China we watch a lot of TV series in which the national heroes like Huo Yuanjia at the end of the Qing dynasty, when China was being colonized, was trying to fight against the foreign competitors in a boxer or some other foreign fighting styles, so that to earn dignity for the Chinese. That was the big thing then. But now, you know, you see competition, Chinese style vis-a-vis, let's just say, Western style or international style. Is it still relevant today?
It is, of course, it is still relevant, because I said that fighting skills is one of the most important part of the Chinese integral.
People still are thinking about whether Chinese are being defeated or Chinese traditional Kung Fu being defeated?
No, it's never. It cannot never be defeated. One thing we should realize that the training way of current time and 100 years ago is somewhat different. That in the Huo Yuanjia's time, that people actually had the environment to fight with each other when they begin to practice the Kung Fu. But in our time,
they always did it in a competitive way.
The society changed. That we have to realize the fact that in current time that we don't have the conditions that 100 years ago to fight with each other when we begin to learn the Kung Fu. But it doesn't mean that the Kung Fu doesn't embody such contents. We still have such things, but I think we need to modernize some training ways. But we don't need to completely give up the traditional martial arts. That's my opinion.
Besides the fighting style and the end result, Mr. Go, what do you think that mentality behind so much attention on this story?
I think it's somehow, I think the way how it blew out of proportion, I think nobody expect that. So really there is a certain community, and I think maybe a certain community could be overreacted, which in my opinion, is not necessary. I don't think this will really affect the industry, the sport's development in the long run. But also I think it also raises good questions. Why do people react so, overreact so strongly? We may have to do some introspections within ourselves. What actually activate ourselves that react in such a way? Maybe we should have to be more confident. Maybe we should be more rational. Maybe we should have less Kung Fu ego or ego Kung Fu style, which I like to call it. I think so that this can be dealt with more in a cool-minded manner. I think this is necessary. I don't think this will go very far, and I don't think you will, in the long term, you will have any significant effect in the long run, or minimum.
Yes, in pop cultures these days, whether it's in movies like Kung Fu Panda or some of the other novels and also TV series, you always see Kung Fu masters be able to conquer eventually against the other party, usually the enemy itself, and also the evil ones. How much does that, in a way, form a habit of all of us believing in that one sport has to be the one that is better or stronger than the other?
I think the Kung Fu movie starts in the 60s and 70s.
That's right.
Especially 70s, late 60s and 70s from Hong Kong movies, and then Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, all that follows. I think it gives a lot of people that, I mean, it's human nature, the aggression, love to have that superpower, especially, like in young boys, people that feel there's a need of it. But I think that aggression, that need to be managed, so that you're not necessarily sick over seeking it.
Yeah, that's why I want to come back to our Tai Chi master, Mr. Xu.
Yes.
When you are talking to your students, how are you helping them to understand the real essence of Kung Fu? The real essence of being modest?
Yes.
And what big purpose will that be able to serve?
Okay. You mentioned a very important
We only
aspect
have
of
1.5 minutes left. You have
Yes.
to put your 2-hour lecture into
yes.
1.5 minutes.
First of all, that practicing Kung Fu can give you many educations without knowing. Many of my students change their tempers when they practice Tai Chi because the movement is very soft, and they change their moving pattern during such a kind of sports. So. Talking about this, the modesty things, I think the one effective way is to talk about the culture behind what they practice. So we can talk about the Taoism, we can talk about the Buddhism, we can talk about many things behind the Tai Chi. I will tell them that Tai Chi is behind Tai Chi we have the philosophy of yin and yang, we have the philosophy of 5 basic elements, we have the philosophy of the Taoism philosophy. So that from these communications that they will know better than purely learn from the book. So I think that's a very good way for the young people to practice Tai Chi.
I wish I could join the 2,000 big crowd to learn from you, Master Xu, about the Tai Chi and the secrets behind the Chinese martial art. Very limited time for such a fascinating topic. I want to thank the both of you, Anthony Go and Xu Chengzhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us, World Insight CGTN, in your search engine, or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on World Insight with Tian Wei team, thanks for watching. Tune in again tomorrow for more insights from across China and around the world. Good night.